Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to day 2 of the Nextv CU Africa 5th edition. I'd like to welcome those who's just logging in for the first time today. As you all know, this is our second day, and we will kickstart straight after a quick introduction of what's going to happen today with in terms of the details from the agenda. So I will just quickly share with you the agenda for today. So bear with me. I will just get that. Sorry, just some technical issues here. So can you all see? Yeah, perfect. So today we'll start with an exciting panel about the private TV on the rise, and we have all our panelists and moderator ready to kickstart in a few minutes, followed by a sponsored panel with our sponsor Zatu, where the speaker will be talking about the benefits of app-based TV experience for pay TV operators. And just before lunchtime, we will have a panel discussing the dynamics of offering original local content on OTT platforms. And then our proud sponsors, SCS, will do a short video presentation on changing video industry dynamics. And then in the afternoon, we'll look at a very insightful panel sponsored by Broadpeak and VAccess Orca on how operators are monetizing their OTT proposition in 2001. And finally, we will end this 2021 Nextv CU Africa with a panel talking about how operators and OTT platform are best collaborating in Africa. But as I said, let's start with the first panel of today, which is Changing Media Landscape, Private TV on the Rise. I have the pleasure to welcome Andrew Hanlon, CEO of TVC Communications, Daniel David, CEO from STV in Mozambique, and also Stefan Hugo, CEO from One Africa TV in Namibia, and finally Max Okeyo, Head of Strategy and Innovation at Nation Media in Kenya. And this panel will be moderated by Reese Torrington. I got it right. Thanks. Back to you.
Better late than never.
Thank you.
Okay, well, look, welcome everybody. I'm not going to spend a lot of time kicking this off because we don't have a lot of time, and it's a very important topic. So I'm Reese Torrington. I'm the Chief Executive to Guana Media. We're a niche consulting company based in Cape Town, Johannesburg, and today in London, helping young media companies get started right across the continent. That's me, but more important are the other people. And I'm going to start with Daniel David. If he could just quickly introduce himself, we'll go around the rest. I'm putting Daniel first because, as you know, Mozambique's in a bit of a tricky situation at the moment, and we want to make the most of the link while we've got Daniel with us. So Daniel, do you want to just briefly introduce yourself, and then I'll come back to you on the first topic.
Thank you. I should like to thank our hosts, Shana and Shana Rafter. Thank you for having me here. First of all, about Mozambique, just to start, as my name said, Daniel David is a Bible name. It means that we'll overcome everything. You just go through the Bible and read what's happened with Daniel, with the lions and so on, and the David and Goliath, and then you'll understand that Mozambique will overcome this tough situation.
Yeah. But it won't take 2,000 years, will it, Daniel?
No. No. I should like to say first that I started this journey in 2000 when I launched the TV station in 2002. First channel, which is STV, is the main private broadcast in Mozambique. And then we launched the radio station, newspaper, and the second channel. And then now we're in OTT with STV Play, which we broadcast anywhere in the world, anytime. We have got 2 TV channels, one free to air and one news channel. We have got radio station basically for youth people. We have got the newspaper. It was printing newspaper before, the first color daily newspaper in Mozambique. But now, because of technology, we are digital now. We are not printing more newspaper. We are running faster, trying to re-strategize our business to go fully digital and maybe closing the newspaper, the digital newspaper for the just web only without newspaper itself. This year, if everything's go well, we are thinking in launching our another channel. This is Group Soico. We call Group Soico our media group. It's my family group. It's private, only surviving in advertisement. That's all. I think the introduction is enough.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Andrew, I thought you had a big empire, but I think Daniel's just trumped yours. But do you want to introduce your much smaller empire now?
Yeah, so I'm Andrew Hanlon, the CEO of TVC Communications in Nigeria. We're headquartered in Lagos, but we have offices and bureau right around the Federation. I came here in 2017 from Ireland, from where I worked for Virgin Media Television as Director of News. When I came here, we basically remodeled the business. It wasn't performing optimally. We have 2 television channels. We had 3. Unfortunately, I had to close one of them down. There were 2 news channels and 1 entertainment channel, and there was 1 radio station. So we now have 2 TV channels. One is a 24-hour DTT and satellite channel, which is news only. And then we have a second channel, which is analog terrestrial in Lagos, and available on DTT and DTH around the rest of the country. We have 3 radio stations, a youth station in Lagos called Max FM. There's a sister Max in Abuja, and then we have a Daba FM in Ondo State as well. So really what I've been doing for the last 4 years is trying to reconstitute the business. We've had some very challenging times trying to do that because of the economic woes of Nigeria. The price of oil has gone through the floor, inflation is through the roof. We had the NSARS protests last year, which ended up causing our business a substantial amount of damage. We went off the air for a couple of days as a result of the damage that was caused to our business, but we got back on. And I'm happy to say, you know, we've come through the worst of it, I think, and business is doing really well. So for us, we are a traditional broadcast business. We don't have newspapers. We aren't doing OTT at the moment. But free-to-air for us is the mainstay of our business. And the reason free-to-air works so well for us is because it's free. And throughout this continent, it's very difficult. It's a big ask to get people to subscribe to any services. So things like Netflix and Amazon, even DSTV, have relatively low numbers because there is a fee involved. So for us, free-to-air is mass audience. We have 12 million viewers and listeners every day, according to the ratings. And that's what the advertisers want to buy. They want big, bulk, mass audience. So yeah, that's us.
Stefan, I think you probably empathize a bit with the free TV and all of those other pressures. You're, compared to Andrew, a bit more of a niche operator, but still alive and kicking.
Yes, still alive and kicking. So yes, I'm the CEO for One Africa Television. In Namibia, it is the only privately owned channel. So the population in the country is quite a lot smaller than places like Nigeria. So we basically have the state broadcaster and then One Africa that operates only as the only private operator. So broadcasting on DTT and on satellite. And yeah, I mean, later on I can share a little bit more about our experience from switching off analog in the country. One Africa is a subsidiary for Tripfire Studios, and in the group we also have a radio station, 99 FM, so no involvement in print. And yeah, over the last couple of years, I've been involved with the business for 3 years. Similar stories of coming from the high life of TV when we had a lot of money to a changing environment pushed by economic pressures in the country and obviously all the disruptions that we've seen on the platform. So in the process of restructuring that in the last 3 years, and also looking ahead to a new, different future.
Super. And finally, Max, as an introduction, you obviously do have a footprint in print as well, but maybe you want to give us a bit of an overview of Nation and where you fit into it.
Yes, thank you very much, Rai. As Ali introduced, my name is Max Okeo. I head strategy and innovation for Nation Media Group. We've got a footprint presence rather in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda, and of course a diaspora presence on our digital platforms or digital assets. Our business has predominantly been a legacy business driven by print largely. And of course, over the years, we got into the broadcast business, radio and TV. We currently have 3 radio stations and 3 TV stations. One TV station and 1 radio station in Kenya. The rest are in Uganda. Our Rwanda business was scaled down just to focus on a digital approach to the business, but we had a radio station there, which we scaled down. It's largely dormant at the moment, but our focus right now is transitioning both audiences and revenue opportunities into the digital spaces. So right now we're focusing on a digital transformation agenda to just try and define new spaces of audiences and revenue opportunities, developing communities, marketplaces, and content opportunities for our audiences as we try to aggregate a younger and youthful audience on board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Max. Danny, let me come back to you and just ask now a more focused question in and around content. And what is your strategy for the content that you choose to put out onto your services? What drives it? What relationship do you try and keep between local content, international content? What sells, what doesn't sell? And do you try and keep any type of, I know you're not public service, but do you try and keep some type of mission to serve the nation? Maybe things that are less popular, but things that need to be said. How do you balance out entertainment with serious content, local with international?
Okay, I don't know what meaning about serious content, but entertainment is serious content.
But sometimes people say, I want to watch the news, and then they fall asleep while they're watching it. But
in our country, we've got freedom of speech, and then our TV station is part of transformation of the country. It's why we are the first, in terms of audience, we are the first channel in terms of news.
Right.
Our news channel is growing fast. We've got 24 hours news channel, which is not free to air, but in our free to air, we are the first channel in the market. We have got a lot of entertainment, and then we invest in the local content. We are building now our new headquarters with three more studio, which we hope will go for fiction in the future. Maybe next year, we'll produce fiction. We have got around 35% of foreign content. All the contents are local. We do a lot of entertainment, a lot of education, a lot of games. We do a lot of sports too. Our key strategy, we differentiate ourselves with a local content. We say content is king, but local is best king.
So you don't have lots of Brazilian telenovelas or stories from Portugal or things like that?
We have 2 soap opera from Brazil, from TV Global. We've got 2 daily, 2 hour, 2 time slots, which is daily from Monday to Friday. From Monday to Friday. Besides that, we have got only local production.
And that's popular. I mean, how are you able to measure that? Do you have effective audience measurement in Mozambique?
After our main news, it's in the second we've got the Brazilian, which is very popular. In prime time, we've got news, which is 1 hour daily news, which are in terms of rating, is where we reach the top. Then after that, secondly, we've got Brazilian soap opera, which we broadcast from 2000, since the beginning of station.
And are you able to attract significant advertising revenue in and around that content?
Yes, it's why we're still surviving until today, because
Right.
only we pay our expense only with advertisement.
Right.
We don't have government or NGOs, nothing. We use advertisement. We are doing well on that. Unfortunately, because of COVID, our revenue came down in 30%. It's why we restructuring and downsizing and cutting a lot of OPEX, investing in technology. Our news area from last year, we decided to go robotics. We use this Sony robotic camera, which we downsize our staff just to be competitive and getting our bottom line well. That's our strategy.
I know, Stefan, you've had to do something similar in terms of downsizing your operation to stay alive, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. When I got here, when that process started, first started with a recession in the country, which obviously put some pressure on our revenues, and then the general pressure in terms of change in the industry as well, and the disruption in revenues. So yeah, I mean, that's a process that we've gone through to really, in terms of the staff that we have, restructure. We also, that was the push for us to become part of a bigger group so that we could share some back office costs. And currently we're busy with a number of processes to look at new technology and technology changes. So we've really cut to the bone, and we're at a place now where we have to start building back in the right spaces again, and making investments. And with that, looking at clever technology that can really serve as well.
So what do you regard as being the right spaces? Where strategically do you want to be in 2-3 years' time?
So the big focus on local content and being connected to the communities that we serve, and both in terms of our news and as well as the educational content that we have. So we're making some investments in that, in those spaces to get better at doing that. Then obviously in terms of our broadcasting, which is at this stage DSTV and GoTV platforms in the country, we have started with more and more on social media platforms and the online broadcasts. So doing obviously work in that space to just make sure the channel is more accessible on more platforms.
Daniel, do you do that? Do you use social media and OTT to supplement what you're putting out on linear television, or do you regard them as being separate platforms that don't interact?
Our main platform, we have got, as I said, free to air for the terrestrial transmission, and then for the news, we have got this pay TV. We've got our app, which we broadcast in app for everywhere. But for the social media, we use only for pushing our audience to the mainstream. We don't use social media for broadcast. We change our strategy as in the production news, that one journalist, we don't call journalist, we call him content producer, which produce news for TV, radio, newspaper, everything. We call copy, concept ones and public everywhere. And then we use social media just for pushing. We don't use social media as a main broadcast system, but for pushing people to our main business.
Yeah, that's something I'm familiar with in other markets, where people actually use social media to create a bit of buzz around what they see as being their flagship products. So chat groups and whatever, all in and around what's happening in the latest episode of, at the moment in the UK, Line of Duty or something like that, and just using social media to keep the conversation going between episodes.
Okay.
Andrew, does that sort of strategy that Daniel's adopting hold true for you in Nigeria? You've got a similar type of mix with news, local content?
Yeah, the vast majority of our content is local on both the entertainment channel, which is the terrestrial channel, and we're the #1 channel in Lagos. We've a 54% market share. We've held that #1 position now for the last 2 years, so we're very happy with that. And we've about 13 operators locally in Lagos, so it's a very crowded market. The Lagos market's about 22 million people in total, of which there are about 5 to 6 million TV households. And the bulk, whilst the country is massive with over 210 million people in total at last count, the real battle for eyeballs is in Lagos, because 60 to 70% of the economic activity and 60 to 70% of the advertising spend is based here. So you've got to be clever about how you spend your money on content, where you spend it, and who you're going to attract with it. So the bulk of the content that really works for us is local. So we'd have a 3-hour breakfast show on the terrestrial channel. Then we've got a sort of a loose women type show for 2 hours between 9 and 11 in the morning. We have an entertainment show in the afternoon, which is locally produced. And then news, of course, on the terrestrial channel as well is very, very big for us.
Do you actually do this yourself, or do you subcontract out to local producers for some of these things?
Yeah, so we buy in from independent producers local dramas, because we're not, it's not our competency. It's a totally different discipline, as we all know. So really what we produce would be the talk shows and news, and that works very well for us. But then local soap operas, we would buy in from independent producers. We did buy some foreign content from Brazil. It did okay for us. It wasn't great. What really works over here, is Nollywood. That does extremely well. So that type of content and really home produced is really what works for us. But then in addition to that, I mean, I suppose, look, for us as broadcasters, we've got to play to our strengths. You've got Netflix, you've got Amazon, you've got DSTV. They're all in the subscription SVOD OTT realm. That content is very, very expensive to produce. It's out of our league. So we play to our own strengths, and that's what works for us. Similar to everybody else here, we rely solely on advertising revenue.
And how do you know, apart from looking at your bottom line, whether it's working or not? I mean, in your discussions with advertisers, have you got market data that you can rely on, or have you got market data that you know is not very good?
Well, no, we've got a diary rating system. So we get the results of the diary about 6 weeks after the fact for a particular month. So we're about a month out of date by the time we get the data, but that's fine. It's better than nothing. But the entire industry subscribes to it. And those numbers are what the agencies rely on and what the broadcasters rely on. So that is the Bible. Whether or not we agree with the methodology now is an entirely different question. But DTT, we are told, is coming into, well, it is on in certain states in Nigeria already. They're telling us that Lagos will have DSO in October of this year. Hopefully, that will mean that we will get an overnight rating system in place. The key question about that is who is going to operate it. Hopefully, it's a reputable international firm like a Nielsen or somebody like that, or a Kantar, somebody who's got the expertise. But that will really add a bit more strength and backbone to the whole system that we have here. But at the moment, we have a diary system, and that works adequately. At least we have a system in place.
And Max, if I just turn to you, listening to these other stories, do these reflect the similar challenges that Nation have got, or do you have something specific as well that also troubles you as you look at the strategy for the whole group?
Yeah, it's interesting what they say reflects in our environment as well. One would be the issue around engagement of audiences on the social media platforms. Yes, it creates engagement, but does not convert into monetization opportunities or monetizable opportunities for that matter. So we use it as well for engaging audiences and transitioning them to our platforms, or use them for continuing engagement from the traditional platforms into the digital spaces. Now, in reference to content, a lot of our content is also local. Our local content creates a lot more engagement on our free-to-air platforms to drive a lot more advertiser opportunities. And like I think Stefan mentioned earlier, we are focused on driving mass audience to help us then attract more advertisers on board. So that model has worked for us and continues to work for us. However, our focus is to then try and transition that into the digital spaces, because free to air is dying. The customers, as we know, in terms of their consumption habits, is changing. So they want to consume things when they want them on demand, in different formats and in different chunks. So we need to be able to make that transition ahead of them. Otherwise, if they go ahead of us, then we're going to only be playing catch up. So we need to just try and go ahead of them and make the transition, develop content and formats that appeal to them, and then try and drive advertiser value in the new spaces. There's something else that was mentioned around subscription model not working in these markets. That is true to a large extent, but that is a mindset issue. We need to help our audiences make that shift as well, so that then we develop more of a hybrid opportunities, advertiser model and reader revenue opportunities, to be able to have some of the content as premium that then drives new revenue opportunities for us as media houses, so that we have both. We have content that is premium, that is not available anywhere else, that our customers are willing to pay for and will pay for because it's premium and it's content they appreciate. And then we also have content that attracts eyeballs to our platforms and brings advertisers on board.
But is it just a mindset issue, or are there some infrastructure challenges as well, like availability of decent data streaming, the cost of data? Does that not constrain your ability to go down this dual path?
Yes, it does. But you see, that is a short-term thing. It's temporary, because over the years, the cost of connectivity, cost of downloading content, or cost of consuming content with live streaming has continued to go down, and it will continue to go down as the infrastructure continues to develop. So as we continue to invest in that kind of infrastructure, and as the costs go down, consumers are more willing to move into the new spaces of consuming content. Yeah. So this is a temporary thing. Eventually, our customers will want to consume live stream without a problem, or rather will consume it without a problem, without the hindrance of cost.
Do you for your TV stations have a sort of a video on demand catch up service, or do you see the OTT service as being something distinctly different with its own content, which is separate to the linear channel?
We do not have a VOD platform. We are working on it as part of our digital transformation agenda. In the next couple of months, we should have something on board for our audiences. And truth be said is, like I said earlier, we are dealing with a more discerning audience, the rise of the knowledge customer. So in which case, they are willing to consume content on demand. It is inevitable that media houses will have to invest in that kind of space. So that said, it is important that we develop platforms that deliver an experience that is appealing to the customers, to be able to then help them make that shift, to be able to make them have a reason to be on the video on demand platforms. So as it is,
when you're looking at shift, Max, in terms of your advertising revenue, do you think you can grow the cake overall, or are you just redefining how it's sliced up between what you get from linear, what you get from, in your case, print, and what you get from digital?
Well, in the short term, the digital revenues will not cover for the deficit that we experience, the decline in revenues in traditional platforms, both broadcast and print. But in the long term, it will, not just through advertising, but through development of content and through developing communities that then develop opportunities for marketplaces or affiliate marketplaces for that matter, that then help us have both forward integration in terms of advertiser opportunity and backward integration in terms of what other opportunities we can leverage on the customers that we have on board.
Great. Daniel, I know you've just received a message that you have to rush off somewhere. Do you have a passing word for the audience? Anything that's on your mind about the strategy going forward that you'd like to leave us with?
What I should like to share is the challenge here in our country. I don't know in other African countries, is the counterfeit and the piracy of the contents. We are challenging big problems here in Mozambique because a lot of TV stations which are rising with the DTT are getting contents without paying their rights and everything, which is very big problems here. It's a challenge that we should like maybe in the future have experience of other countries. How can we overcome this situation? Because we pay everything what we broadcast, but some lot of 40 channels that we have now with the DTT, a lot of them, they don't pay their rights, which is very difficult to compete in that situation.
Yes, and I've heard too that very often they pirate stuff that's not even available in Africa. They've lifted from HBO or Amazon or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for all of you.
Thank you, Dan. You keep safe.
Thank you. Bye.
Great. Stefan, how do you now fight for your share of the advertising revenue spend in Namibia? As you look at splitting it out over your free to air and now your radio and whatever, what really is top of your agenda to try and pump some lifeblood into your operation?
Risa, yeah, I mean, we've definitely seen a decline in the traditional 30-second ads. So we've had a lot more success in the last year or two was where we talk to clients about content sponsorships, aligning with contents, especially when we're looking at local content, pulling in some clients from the beginning as sponsors and working with them, and then giving them exposure across all the platforms that we have. So the TV platforms plus the social media platforms and some exposure on radio. And we've got some partnerships with local papers as well, where we've managed to give them some brand exposure. So in terms of diversifying revenue, that was something that we've had a lot more interest in, definitely seen some growth in that kind of revenue, just as opposed to the 30-second ad spots. Yeah, then we've done some, so as more as people want to do live streams, so we've had situations where we use our studios to do live streams for clients, and part of that, we've captured the content and created some TV content for them that we've either pulled into the news or into some other programming. So taking that live stream environment events and creating some media around that as well. And there's more and more interest with that. I think the difficult thing, and that everyone would say, is the perception that some advertisers that still have that if it's digital, it's free, and it's really cheap because it's on the internet. And I think that's an ongoing conversation with clients to say, it doesn't matter where you broadcast it, there's the cost to capture the content and to create the content. So you must pay for that, and then you pay for eyes and ears, and to explain to people you buy eyes and ears doesn't matter on which platform it goes out, is the challenging conversation that we're having with advertisers.
Right. Andrew, typically there have been two big enemies for operators such as yourselves. One has been the big pay TVs, the DSTVs, Canal Pluses of this world, riding on the back of their sport content. And then the other mantra has been, well, now Netflix is taking over the world, so we might as well pack up and go home. Everybody's just consuming it when they want to consume it. Do either one of those specters scare you?
Look, you know, first thing I would say is competition is always good. But as I said earlier, I think the Netflix, the DSTVs who have the premium content can live side by side with terrestrial local broadcasters. And we recognize that. We see how we coexist in the market. We see how the advertisers react to the likes of a DSTV. If DSTV does Big Brother Niger, huge budgets will go to that content. There's no question about it. But the investment in content like that is absolutely enormous. I mean, it's, you know, it's millions of dollars. It's like buying sports rights. It's a different league, no pun intended. So we're quite happy to continue as we are, provide the local content, generate mass audiences for advertisers, and get value from that and provide value for the services that we're providing. So, you know, we can all live in the same universe is really what I'm saying. And then as far as digital is concerned, we put an entire digital team together. And the reason we've done that, it's kind of a two-pronged thing. Yes, one is to promote our own programs and activities on the various channels that we have, but advertisers want it as well. And we're not going to spend money on it unless we're going to monetize it back to ourselves. So what we're doing is now, anytime we do a campaign for an advertiser, they may say, well, we want offcuts to add to Facebook or to go onto YouTube and so on. And we're actually getting more revenue out of that. It's not a free service, but advertisers want it. And then we'll make specific advertiser digital content as well. And so that they feel like they're getting a full 360 service. They get mass TV, they get mass radio, and they're getting digital content as well. So their clients feel a lot happier that they're invading all of those digital spaces, which are very, very important. There's no question about it. Facebook and YouTube are really enormous, and we're beginning to reap the benefits from that now through that digital investment. The revenue is coming back in. It's still only a fraction of what it is we generate from traditional 30-second spots and sponsorships and product placement and so on. So it's another revenue stream for us, and we're really going to push that now, and we're seeing the benefits of it. But going back to your original question, are the big boys going to eat us up? I don't believe that's the way it's going to work. It's the two of us are complementary. Pay TV and free TV is complementary, and I think that's great.
I personally would agree with that 100%. I think there's still lots that can be done to grow the total market rather than squabble over what's there. Max, you've got a similar perspective, I'm guessing, looking from Nation's point of view. The other question I was going to ask you as well is what Andrew was describing there is sometimes not just the lack of clarity from the point of view of what the operators are trying to achieve, but maybe even the advertisers don't really understand now in this new world where their points of leverage are, and maybe are not very clear on where they're going to get the best bang for their buck. Do you see that advertisers need a bit of guidance from us as well?
Yes, I think a lot of advertisers still need that kind of guidance to be able to shape value from their spend. But over the years, we've seen a lot more advertisers beginning to seek for more value in terms of where they're spending their money. So it's not just about them spending on your platform, but them deriving value from that kind of spend. And that's why in the digital spaces, you see we have to invest in data tools to be able to give them value from what they're spending. So then they begin to see what the data is showing on where the spend is, where their customers are, what are they consuming, where would they get the highest value, where would they get the highest return from. So we need to guide them in terms of how best to spend the advertising revenue, the advertising spend, and how and where to place their advertising so then they're able to get their best value from it.
Reese, if I could just come back in there for a second, just on that, if you don't mind. Look, as an outsider coming into Africa, and I'm only here 4 years, but I very quickly learned that one of the big concerns that international advertisers have is that there is leakage in the continent of Africa. So in certain territories, they'll go in, and for every dollar they put into an advertising campaign, they may only get 75% of it in terms of value that is realized, in terms of spots that are played, in terms of whatever it is they are buying, whatever media they're buying. And that's a big problem. So that dents confidence for international advertisers, be it Coca-Cola, be it Nestle, or whoever it is, in terms of how they spend their money here. And this is something the entire industry around the continent has really got to get smart about. We need proper verification systems so that when we say we play a commercial on our TV or our radio stations, there is absolute 100% certification for it. Big advertisers, if you take a Unilever, for example, they now, because of pressure from their own shareholders, have to use big accountancy firms like Accenture or PwC to actually start purchasing their media airtime around the continent, because they need the certification and the verification that there is no leakage, that there is no fraud, and so that every dollar they spend in a media campaign around the content is delivered 100%. Because these firms have shareholders, a lot of them are publicly quoted companies, and that they have to be able to prove that their shareholders are not being ripped off. So I think this is kind of an industry-wide thing that everybody, all of us, needs to take a really good hard look at. And that's why having proper rating systems that are verifiable, that are credible, is really important. And that's why I hope that when they introduce DTT fully in Nigeria, that we have a proper overnight rating system that people believe in, that advertisers believe in. Because if there's no trust in the system, and if there is fraud in the system, then we all get damaged. We all lose revenue. And that's something we all have to work together on to improve the amount of revenue that there is in the market. Because if you look at the spend that comes in from international advertisers across the continent, it's very small in comparison to Western territories. You might just say, well, that's the West. Of course, they're going to put more into the West. We all hear that Africa is the burgeoning market. We all hear that Africa is the place to be. Population is going to spiral. Certainly in Nigeria, the population estimates over the next 20 years are enormous. So of course advertisers want to come in, but they're afraid to spend here. They are afraid because they are afraid they're going to lose part of the investment that they make in local media in certain parts of the continent. So that's something we all need to address, and it's key to our economic survival.
And just one of the comments from the audience here was, in terms, therefore, of being able to make the most of this, is there a risk that the content is going to come across as being too fragmented, that there's not a strategy that you could take back to the advertisers because the consumers are not certain where they're being able to engage with the content, because some of it's on free-to-air, some of it's on pay, some of it's on OTT? Is that a challenge?
I don't think so, Reese. I mean, you know, as we said, we all know if you want to get sort of the premium movies, you can go to Netflix or you can go to Amazon. Everybody knows that now. You'll get a large dollop of that as well from DSTV if you're prepared to buy the premium package for the movies, and so on. So I think people are smart enough; they know where to go. But in economically challenged countries like Nigeria, I can tell you, the vast majority of people cannot afford those subscription systems. Exactly. And free to air, therefore, has a long pathway ahead of it.
Yeah. Guys, we've only got a minute left, unfortunately, and you've got the short straw. This was only a 45-minute session, not an hour's one. So I'd like to thank anybody, and any last 15-second sound bites from anybody. Stefan, other than goodbye?
No, thank you very much. I think the one thing that I just wanted to allude to was with DTT. I think we've had experience in Namibia where DTT was totally controlled by the national broadcaster, and it's really not worked out well for the industry. So I think that's something to fight and to look out for in countries that are still going from analog to DTT.
Great, thanks so much. And lastly, you, Max, anything else you want to leave us with? 10 seconds.
Yeah, very quickly. I think there are huge opportunities within the digital space. It's important to just define strategies that help us aggregate audiences and create these monetizable opportunities.
Perfect. Andrew, thank you very much. Thanks everybody for taking part. It's been really interesting. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.